Anyway, the point is, I had an appointment at the DMV, and I had to go to emissions just before that. And so I went to go start on my car like an hour before I had to be at emissions, and it was dead again. And so I went to go get my little portable jumper thing again, and then that was dead. And so I had to go and charge that, but I don't have like a good fast way to charge that thing, so I had to use an iPad charger to charge up this battery thing to then put that thing on my car and hope that it had enough juice in it to start the car. And then hopefully I would have enough time to make it to emissions, pass emissions, and then go to the DMV for my thing before work, which was like a super hectic morning or whatever. Anyway, it was a pain in the ass. I went to emissions. He made me turn off the car twice, and I thought my car was going to die in emissions. And it was kind of funny because I have like a portable power bank to charge your phone, and I have this portable power bank to start your car. So as an emergency, I had my fully charged phone power bank connected to my dead car power bank, trying to charge like one with the other while I was driving, just in case my car died while I was out there, because I didn't have any juice in the thing. So it was stupid. It was a pain. And then I missed my appointment because of emissions took so long, and it was a whole thing. So that's why I'm going to the DMV tomorrow to hopefully fully register the car.
Nice. I was gonna say, if I remember right, your alternator charges the battery while your engine's running.
Yeah,
so
that's why
hopefully your car starts tomorrow. Otherwise, you have an alternator problem.
No, I mean that's why I was driving it around the block for 15 minutes to do that. But I guess it wasn't enough. I think you need to drive it like at a certain speed for a certain time to get like a proper amount of. I don't know anything about cars, but some dude from AAA told me that once when he replaced my battery because my car died in a lot because exactly this thing happened.
Yeah. That sucks. I don't know if I've ever had a battery die on me. I've only had my gas pump fail.
That sounds worse, but I don't know.
Yeah, that one's worse because your car just doesn't turn over, which is an interesting problem.
It's also probably more expensive to fix than a battery.
Yeah. Well, the funnier thing is I got my car fixed, and then like a week later I got into a car accident. We got rear-ended with it, and my car was just totaled. So that was a good time in my life, I feel like.
Isn't it crazy how you can just start a statement with "the funny thing is" and then end it with "I got in a car accident"? The fuck? Literally
I can
nothing
only
funny
say
about
it like that because I was totally fine, but my car wasn't.
That sucks. How recent was that? I don't remember you getting in a car accident.
Yeah, you have to have, because after that I got my current car.
Oh, so this was like 6 years ago.
Yeah. This was a while ago. My current car hasn't had any problems, thank goodness.
Oh, wow. Mr. Fancy Car over here. Mr. No Problems Money Bags over here.
Yeah, no problems. Aside from like a nail in the tire and like a chipped windshield, but that's, that's stuff that just pops up. No mechanical failure.
Yeah.
But anyway, everyone, welcome to episode 73 of the Researched and Amplified Homegames podcast. I'm Yazeed, and this is Joseph.
Hello, my name is Joseph. Today is Monday, March 15th, 2021. Today for Homegames stuff, we're talking about the certifier and making that a Docker container, talking about some of the leftover tasks for the Homegames builder, and I had some thoughts on an iOS app that made me rethink how things will work in the future, which we'll talk about. And then Yazeed has done some research on vision and what appear to be algorithms, so that'll be some fun, probably math talk.
Yeah, but before any of that, how's it going, man? What's new? What's happening?
It's been a chill week, a good week for me. Not a lot really new, I guess, life-wise, except for, like I just said, registering my car has been 4 months of waiting for that just to be able to drive again has been such a pain, but whatever. And then I played some video games. I actually played a lot of Crossbow Blood Knight, the game I talked about last week. So I think where we were last week was I've played this game for a few hours. I don't really know if I'm going to keep playing it. It's kind of cheap, and like you can tell it's kind of like a low budget thing, and it's simple, and it's a not so good version of Devil Daggers. And at that point I had about 4 hours of playtime, and I had unlocked 3 out of the 4 achievements. And then as I speak to you at this moment, Yazeed, I have 16 hours of playtime in this game, and I have all 4 achievements. Now, I will say that 2 of those hours are probably not real playtime because I left the game on to go do stuff, but that still means I played the game for about 10 hours this past week. This is a game I didn't really think was very good.
Holy moly.
Okay, so I just wanted to...
What changed?
So it's that thing of I mentioned last week, but it has that same hook as Devil Daggers. It's that same thing of like the way that the game works is things will spawn in preset positions at preset times. At the 15-second mark, this thing will spawn in this position, and it'll spawn these things, like as whatever. At the 45-second mark, these things will spawn, and basically you just have to kill things fast enough to not be overwhelmed by the things that'll come in at, like I said, set times. And so the thing that kept me wanting to play was the achievement. Like I only had 3 out of 4, and the 4th achievement was just basically make more progress. Like it implied killing a boss or collecting a upgrade or something, but it was, the game only goes forward. You only just survive an amount of time, and then the game's over. So in my head, I just knew that 4th achievement was just playing and lasting longer than I had been. So it at a certain point became what Devil Daggers is. Remember that things spawn here, run to them, kill them fast, and optimize your run, basically. And so, yeah, I did that, and I got my achievement, and I will never play that game again. That's like, I need the achievements. If it weren't for the achievements, I wouldn't have played it.
Dang. Well, I guess, I know last week you said, like, that's not even a game that you would normally be into. So, like, even though you said it wasn't super great, wasn't super polished, there has to be really something in those games that you really like.
Yeah, it's the fact that the only problem is you. Like the game isn't the game isn't getting easier. The game isn't getting it's not changing in any way. The only thing changing is you. You're getting better at learning the game. Like I also got used to Crossbow Blood Knight because it has some things on it that make it, in my opinion, easier than Devil Daggers. So like I mentioned last week, you have a rocket launcher in addition to kind of this like spread shot or stream shot. You've also got a dash, so you can hit shift and like basically teleport somewhere, which is pretty nice. And you have health, so like you can get hit by stuff and not die depending on how big the thing is. Stuff like that. So it's quite a bit easier than Devil Daggers, where it's like one hit kill. You've got these very simple weapons, and anyway. But like I said, the only thing that needs to change is you. You just need to get better at it until you progress. It's like Demon Souls or whatever. It's like, yeah, these upgrades help, but if you suck at this game, you're never going to beat this boss. But you don't even have upgrades in Devil Daggers. I mean, you get a better weapon, like your weapon gets more powerful as you collect more of these gems that drop from enemies when they die, but that's it. Like there's no persistent RPG stuff. It's just that run. Yeah. Oh,
okay. I see. So, I mean, I guess after playing these 2 games, do you think like that those games are something that you do enjoy, or do you think that it's something about those 2 games specifically?
Oh no, I like, this is my kind of game. Like this is like first person Geometry Wars. I think when I said that I don't play these kinds of games normally last week, I meant like indie cheapy games. Like not to disrespect that genre, but I don't have a better way of articulating what I'm saying, which is like, low budget type stuff. And normally it's like, oh, I'm gonna play I have this list of games that I want to play, and a lot of them are big budget, like Just Cause 4 is on my list and all this kind of stuff. So in my head, it's like that stuff is more deserving of my time than this $4 indie bullshit. But I spend a lot of time playing this indie bullshit, and it's actually not bullshit. It's great. Like it's a very good version of this game. And once you look past kind of the like rough edges of it and weird stuff, like it doesn't look great, but it made my computer very, very hot, and I was confused by that at the beginning because like my computer is not it's not bad, I guess. My CPU is a little old, but whatever. But I heard my fans, like every fan in the case was spinning crazy. Like everything was working as hard as it possibly could to keep the thing cold or cool. And I think what it was that the game just scales infinitely, running at a faster and faster frame rate until it hits a bottleneck, and then it keeps trying to go. So like basically it was an uncapped frame rate. I don't know what frame rate it was, but I would guess it's pretty fucking high. And then I went to the options and I just capped the frame rate to whatever it did, and then it started working fine on my computer. Yeah, but it was just kind of funny. Like quirks of indie games like that.
Yeah. The optimization is always like one of the last things to get tacked on.
But I would say
learned from Cyberpunk.
I would say that's a win. I mean, in my head, like without knowing about how games are programmed, like multi-core and GPU and that kind of stuff. I don't know much about that, but in my head, if your game is utilizing my GPU and CPU kind of in a direct, like correlated way or whatever, just going up and up until one of them hinders you, it's still working as hard as it possibly can, and your game is just running at like 300 FPS. Like, that's ideal, you know? I'm guessing that's what it was. I don't know.
I mean,
it's a Unity game.
I think I'm for an indie game that is pretty nuts. I was gonna say, like, imagine there's like people out there who are like, oh, actually, you shouldn't be clocking your CPU that high for long periods of time. It's gonna damage. I actually don't know if that's true or not. I'm just making up an argument.
Well, I don't even overclock it. Like, it has the built-in overclock stuff where it'll boost up to 3.7 gigahertz. It's like a 5-year-old Intel processor, so I it's not amazing at all, but yeah, it runs hot, like 70 Celsius or whatever. But I think they can go up to like 90 pretty comfortably, so I'm not too worried. And I'm gonna need to upgrade my computer at some point in the future, I've realized, because my CPU is starting to become a bottleneck, I think. Like in City Skylines, it runs like shit because of my CPU. So
once traffic starts kicking, you're like, ugh.
Yeah, which is it's nuts being like, oh, you know, my computer. I don't know. I guess in my head, my computer is still great, even though time keeps happening, and my computer gets worse by the day as a result, like of comparing it to what's out there.
Yeah, that is.
It's been years.
True. Yeah, technology's always building up, at least recently, so,
Yeah, well, it's like, oh, cool, I can get like a 64-core Ryzen fucking 5 gigahertz crazy-ass processor for like $400, which is what this thing cost when I got it, and it's like, well, shit, and then I have a pretty nice GPU or whatever, but the new ones that are half the price are already better than it, so I was like, fuck, there's never a good time to upgrade. I'm just going to wait forever.
Well, now's not a good time to upgrade, I guess, because I heard GPUs are insanely in demand, like you can't even find any.
I won't upgrade my GPU for at least 2 years, just because I feel like I need to get my money's worth, because it's a 2080 Ti, and I feel like I just got fucked on the value, so I have to squeeze out as much as I can for it.
Bring that out. Yeah, I have a 1080, so I'm a little more comfy where I'm at, but I'm also a little more outdated. Once games actually start using ray tracing, I'm sure I'll feel the hurt on that one.
That's crazy too, because like my monitor is ultra wide. It's a 3440 by 1440, and I can't run Battlefield 5 with ray tracing on because it'll be at like 25 FPS, and so like it's not even 4K. Yeah. And turning on like low whatever detail ray tracing, you'll get like 40 FPS, but medium or beyond, it's unplayable. So I have like the ray tracing card.
Unironically, actually, one of the Wikipedia articles I linked in here explains ray tracing. Mm-hmm. If I remember right, it's the bounding volume explains it.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know what anything is. Like if you watch a Digital Foundry video, they'll talk about all the complexity with the rendering techniques and textures and processing and whatever. It's like, I only know like half the words you're saying, and I have a fucking degree.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like an entirely different skill set than what we have to like make stuff like that, though.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, tech is a very broad field, so I'm sure there's a bunch of techniques that we have no clue about.
It's like majoring in art. It's like you don't just know all art now. you know some of the things
art,
behind.
Name every kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of old, slightly unpolished games, I tried Pokemon Fire Red.
Nice. On an emulator?
Yes. It was fun, kind of. So a couple of things that are on me, I still don't understand how potions work, so my Squirtle died or whatever when I was not in combat because he got poisoned. Which upset me greatly because I was like, well, I only have this one Pokemon, so I just got teleported to the Pokemon hospital, and they were like, we fixed your shit, so here you go. And I was like, cool. So that's one. Two, I didn't understand that you don't auto capture Pokemon when you knock them out. So
Oh, yeah.
I misread their instructions because they're like, weaken a Pokemon and then you can capture it. So I didn't want to capture 100 Weedles or 100 Caterpies, so I just avoided a lot of combat. And because I had Squirtle, when I got to the Rock Gym leader, I kind of beat the Rock Gym leader in like one go.
Right.
But my Squirtle was still pretty low level, so when I ran into my rival, he was like, oh, you got the blah blah blah, time to fight me, coward. And then he had like a level 12 and I had like a level 6, and I was just like, oh no. And then I got beat to death and I was like, oh brother, I can't advance the story now. And then I figured, I was like, well, now I have to go capture 100 Caterpies, but then it didn't auto capture them, so I was like, perfect. So
Yeah, I guess it is confusing. It's like this thing of you have to get their health down to like yellow, and then in my elementary school there was always this rumor, I don't know if it was even real, but if you held down the A and B buttons at the same time while it was capturing it, then you would get a better chance of capturing it. I have no fucking idea if that was real.
I don't know either. I'll try it though. I haven't failed to capture one. I did, however, run into one Mankey and then one-shot it accidentally, and I was like, I actually wanted that one, so... But I haven't found another one. I don't know if I'm going to, so...
Yeah, Mankey's a good one. You should get him.
Yeah, right now I
I
have a Weedle that evolved into...
The butterfly thing?
Monster.
Oh, the yellow thing?
Huh?
The yellow thing, Kakuna?
Yeah. And then...
sucks.
I mean... I like fighting them because for some reason the AI just permanently spams Harden and doesn't attack you. So it's like I get to just beat this thing and it just takes forever.
Do you feel like that's what I was talking about last week when I said that it was relatively easy? Like, do you feel like it's been challenging outside of you dying from that poisoning or whatever?
No, it's not particularly challenging if I understand the instructions, which I clearly cannot. So,
do you enjoy it overall?
I enjoyed it. It was fun. I feel like I learned a lot in the hour that I played it. So, yeah, it was fun. I picked Squirtle as my opener.
Yeah.
People just challenge you to fights randomly, which I think is hilarious from a adult person looking in kind of perspective. You're just walking through a bug forest and you run into some nerd and he's like, fight me, coward. And you're like, okay, and he has 18 Caterpies, but your Squirtle beats all of them, so you're just amazing.
Right. What the fuck are you doing out here all day?
Why are you capturing so many bugs? I don't know. I'm excited to see the rest of the world because so far all I've done is beat up bugs. So, and that one Mankey and my rival and Onyx. I honestly thought Onyx was going to be a bigger challenge because I also don't know the type mismatches.
Yeah.
So I just got lucky that Squirtle beats those guys because I probably couldn't if I picked a different opener. But yeah, it was pretty nice.
Yeah, there's some, I guess, strategy about that stuff because if you have, I guess you kind of got lucky there because if you have rock type and fire type as the gyms in the beginning, then you have an advantage because you're water. So then by the time later on when you fight stuff that's good against you have time to level up or whatever. But I would still say ultimately it doesn't really matter. If you have 5 levels on the thing you're fighting, you're gonna win, basically.
I was 5 levels down, or I was 4 levels down or something like that. I just, because water bubbles beat them in one hit, basically, right. I was like, this is perfect. I can't lose.
Nice. I mean, if you've enjoyed it so far, I think maybe I was wrong on if you'd like it or not, because that's pretty much the game. You keep exploring stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if I can play
40
60 hours of it. Yeah. But I mean, in the hour I spent, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it until I realized that I needed to grind to beat my rival, and then I was just spamming the same ability to beat down Weedles and Caterpies. And accidentally killing the Mankey, but
maybe it's a fire red thing and I don't remember it very well, but I will say in general I don't remember ever having to grind much in Pokemon. It was always an interesting progression, and I happened to find myself properly leveled with what I should have been. So
I think it's because you probably fought things literally in the first place where it's here's 100 sparrows or whatever, and here's 100 Rattatas that you could fight. I just opted to run away because, like I said, I didn't want to capture those ones. So I was like, I don't want them, so I'm just gonna leave them to it. But then when I actually needed a leveled up Pokemon, I didn't have one, so I had to like go back and fight all the things I had avoided.
Yeah, that sounds not fun, but that's also probably the worst part of grind. Like that's the when the grind is the worst at the beginning, but
yeah,
it should improve from there. And then there's an item later that you'll get called an Exp Share. This is different in the most recent Pokemon one, like Pokemon Sword. In Sword, when you kill a Pokemon or when you end a fight, all of the Pokemon in your party get experience. So that's really nice. It's also seems to be super easy. But in that one, in like the older games, it's not the case. But you can get an item called an Exp Share where you give it to one Pokemon in your party. So like that's kind of a way of grinding, because what you do is you have like a level 60. It's your Blastoise. By that point, will be your level 60, and then you go and fight Pokemon that are about that level, and you're just fucking blowing them away. But if you have like a level 5 Pidgey in your party and you have the Exp Share on them, then they're getting like half the experience of every fight. So then they're going like level 20 in 10 minutes or whatever. But that was the worst of the grind. Like you're never really spending like 30 minutes or an hour just walking in the grass.
Oh, so I don't need to throw Magikarp out there to get the shit kicked out of him I'm into Gyarados? That's good to know, because I definitely would have taken the approach where just Magikarp's the first idiot out and then just takes a pounding and then switches out to something that can actually fight back.
That is, I mean, that's if you want to Gyarados fast, that's what you got to do. You got to make your Magikarp your main Pokemon. Every fight that you have, he'll be out first. He'll take a hit, you swap him out, and then you actually fight something. But until you get the Exp Share, that's kind of what you have to do.
Well,
it's such a formula. That's what I said. Like those games, it's such a formula, but it's amazing. I love that stuff.
The other thing too for me is I don't know any of the Pokemon. I only know like 4 or 5 Pokemon. Or I guess maybe I know like 12 Pokemon because I know like some of the evolved paths, right? So all of this is new to me. Like I forgot about Weedle, and I didn't know about Weedle, and I forgot about Caterpie. And so when I fought Weedle, I was like, oh, cool, here's a worm. And then it was like, by the way, here's the evolved version. It's a cocoon. And now I'm curious, like, ooh, what does it become? So I'm excited to level him up a little bit more to get or her, I don't remember, to get whatever that's after Kakuna or Hakuna.
I think it's a Butterfree.
Is it? No, I thought Caterpie became Butterfree.
Maybe it is.
Don't spoil the surprise.
Whatever, man. Do you think that the Pokemon are interesting? Like, this is the first generation of Pokemon. Like, the Pokemon, the iconic Pokemon. Do you have that kind of a thing, or do you just kind of like...
I think I have some nostalgia because I watched the TV show when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any. I don't remember, like, any of them. Like, I remember, like, Bulbasaur and... Ivysaur or Venusaur.
Yeah, that's there's 2 of them. Yeah, because Bulbasaur evolves into, I think, Ivysaur and then Venusaur.
Oh, okay. And then I know like Squirtle and then Wartortle and then Blastoise and Charizard and Charmander and Pikachu and Gyarados
Charmander.
And Magikarp.
Yeah. You missed Charmeleon.
Rhyhorn. I remember Rhyhorn.
Let's just keep naming every. But
that's it. That's actually the extent of the Pokemon I know. So this is a short, short list. It's not like 280 or whatever there is.
Yeah, I think it's 151 in that first run. So that's pretty reasonable. Before it was like 1,000 Pokemon.
That's all I remember.
Nice. Well, I eagerly await your Pokemon updates until you inevitably give up.
Well, I'm thinking about stopping here and then waiting and then buying a Switch and then playing like a recent Pokemon game on the Switch.
How many bosses, like gym bosses, have you fought?
Just one. And I won in one try, which means I'm clearly the best Pokemon master in the world. So,
have you had to use cut to cut down a tree yet? I would say
that ability.
I would say you should get to the point where you can cut, and if you really want to get a full experience, get to the point where you have to surf. And if you can do those things and you feel like you want to see the next level, you should. I don't know. I feel like one gym boss is like still basically a tutorial in Pokemon.
Probably.
I don't know. Yeah. Like you.
It probably is. But part of the reason I wanted to get a Switch anyways because I want to try playing on a console again. Because this would be the first console I've played on in like 10 years or something. Like literally since the 360. So.
Have you held a Switch, like a Pro controller or the actual device itself?
I've played at like a house party when the Switch first came out.
It's comfortable. Does it fuck up your hands?
I mean, I only held it for a little bit because like it's a house party. And we're just playing that like party game or whatever it was, where you just like a bunch of game modes and you like switched off who was playing. So maybe we played like a total like 15 minutes. So I mean, it felt fine, but also I wasn't really like playing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Switch is a super cool console. It's certainly the only one that's like unique. I mean, every game that's available on Xbox is on PC, and a lot of games on PS5 are on PC. And like a Switch is a good. It's not like that. It's a different thing. So Switch is awesome.
I got you. But yeah, man, what else going on with you besides my Pokemon stuff?
Speaking of PS5 stuff, I've been playing Demon Souls basically since I got a PS5 in December, and basically like I really loved Dark Souls and that whole series and Bloodborne and Sekiro, and I had never played Demon Souls, so it was just a big thing that I wanted to see what that whole game was about. And in my head, I wasn't sure if it would be a lot harder or a lot easier or whatever than the other games I had played, and I don't know if you're familiar with Yazeed, but basically that whole game is about shortcuts. Like you can start at a point A and try to get to point B, and it's a super painful process to get to point B. But at some point along the way, you might find that there's a lever you can pull or something you can do to build a shortcut for yourself. So on the next time that you go from point A to point B, it's a lot easier. And kind of these different paths that aren't always super obvious that you can take, but when you explore more, you inevitably build more shortcuts and you get a better understanding of the world, and it's kind of the whole game. All that's just to say, I was playing Demon Souls and I didn't realize there was a pathway behind one enemy, and so I kept running in this other direction, and I kept trying to fight one particular kind of mini boss who was just such a pain in the ass to fight. And over again, I would run through all these enemies, get to this dude, try to fight him thinking I was on the only path, and then die. And repeat and repeat and repeat. I'm on literally the first checkpoint. After like the initial tutorial, I'm on the first checkpoint. I beat all these other games, right? Like I don't think I suck at these games. But it was just this thing, and it felt like, in my head, I was like, man, this game is older, because it's like 2010 or something like that. So I was like, this is before they really fleshed out that whole exploration and stuff. Anyway, I was super wrong. I spent 3.5 hours doing that. Like my actual playtime was 3.5 hours running, getting frustrated. But I was doing it. Like I had the patience for it because I just thought, like I said earlier, that the only thing that was wrong was me. Anyway, found that there was another path and there was a boss behind that path. And then once you fight that boss, you can actually unlock character upgrades. So you can upgrade your health and stamina and attack and other things like that. I literally was like at that point. I was almost 4 hours into the game before I realized you can fucking upgrade your things. Because that's the whole thing. You get souls and you can buy upgrades and whatever. Anyway, beat that boss and it was fine. And then I beat another boss after that because that was the path I was supposed to take. This boss to this boss to this boss, whatever. And so just out of curiosity, after I kind of found that this was where the game was, I was curious about what was in this original path that I was taking, because it was essentially just a big door and then like a night dude out front who was just fucking me up every time. Like one hit kill type stuff. And after like a 10-minute run to get to that dude, it's such a pain in the ass. But anyway, I went back with some upgrades and some better armor and stuff like that, and I killed him. It was still super hard, but I killed him. I went to the door. I was behind him thinking like, fuck, this is the moment, this is what it is, and it was locked. So it's like, okay, even if I had done this and I somehow beat this night guy without finding that other path in the beginning, I would have killed him after like 12 hours of playtime, and then found the locked door and just like pulled my hair out in frustration. So kind of worked out. But anyway, Demon Souls, very good, very good.
On one hand, you're very smart. You're like one of the smarter people I know. Yeah, on the other hand, the simplest puzzles, and I'm going to put that in quotes, in video games seem to really trip you up. Like, I know you can beat actual puzzle games, but like when faced with like options A or B, you're like, there must be an option C, and you tend to run into walls a lot, it feels like.
Yeah, like Alex will tell you that, like, he'll make fun of me for this all the time, but it was in Oblivion. I stopped playing Oblivion for like a year because I didn't know how to progress past a certain mission, and it's because there was a lever on the wall that you're supposed to pull to get access to this door. And I was just there walking around, what the fuck? Why can't I open this door? Because it's not obvious to me that there's a lever there. Because like, maybe it's the way I play games, but I don't process what's on the screen. I just like do objectives. Like if I'm playing GTA, I'm looking at the map. I'm not looking at the game. Like I'm looking at where I'm supposed to go. Like the mechanics of it, not the like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't get the context. I'm just trying to do the thing. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's why Geometry Wars is so appealing. It's like just the objective.
Listen, I understand your thought process on this. I don't agree with it, but I understand.
And then just my last thing, briefly wanted to mention. So I have like this whole bunch of technology. I used it in that demo for Homegames stuff where I had like all my phones out and I was playing a thing with all of them out. One of the things that I had but I didn't have in that video was an iPod Touch from 2010, like a second or third generation iPod Touch. And I don't have a charging cable for it anymore, so I couldn't even turn it on. But I ordered one this past week, and I got it, and I charged it, and I turned it on. And I had all these early to mid 2010s songs that I had on my iPod. And that was kind of a fun thing, which we'll talk about probably more during Song of the Week. But one thing that I thought was just super, super impressive is like, here's this thing that is 11, 12 years old. It's on iOS version 3. My phone's on iOS 14, just for some like frame of reference. It's that old. You can go to Safari on the iPod, like open up a web browser, but no sites will load because I don't know what happened, like what the thing that changed is, but it can't validate any TLS certificates. It can't verify any certs, so it doesn't have any HTTPS anything on it, so most websites won't load. Stuff like that. It's non-functional for pretty much apps and YouTube and all that stuff, but as an MP3 player, it's still really smooth. And I have a HomePod. Like we have just the Apple Alexa, whatever, right? Smart speaker. And you can AirPlay. And AirPlay is like the Bluetooth beaming thing that iOS devices have, and it's been around forever, like since iOS 3 or whatever. And I just thought it was fucking amazing. I put this thing on Wi-Fi. I went to my music library, and it still had the AirPlay logo in like iOS 3 design, blocky ass looking thing. And I brought it up, and it was like, oh, you can AirPlay to your HomePod. And in like one button, I did it, and my 10-year-old iPod was streaming audio to this thing that came out a few years ago, and like I didn't have to do any setup. Like it just works still. And in my head, like I suck the dick of Apple a lot, but that's why. Like that kind of stuff is just like my favorite thing. When like, holy shit, this still works, and holy shit, they had the foresight back in however long ago when this OS version came out to like make this compatible with whatever this thing is now. And holy shit, I don't know.
That's really cool. I wasn't expecting that. That's impressive.
And the battery still charges and like hold the charge. It's crazy. Like, I don't know, man. My Vita won't keep a charge. That thing is done already. I had to replace the battery twice, but this old ass iPod, I don't know. I'm just surprised it's still alive. Kind of like when you had a Nintendo DS, or if you ever had a Nintendo DS, but you can close that thing for like 5 years and then come back and the battery's still on, and it's like, oh yeah, I've been in standby this whole time. Like they're invincible.
That's kind of cool. I've never owned a Game Boy, so I've never experienced that.
Yeah, they last forever.
Long lives.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I don't know, it was fun. It's like my high school iPod with all of my high school songs and a lot of corny like backpacker hip hop type, like this is real hip hop, real rap type stuff. That was pretty funny.
Nice, man. Are you good to go on to home game stuff?
Yes, I am good to go to home game stuff. Did you want to talk about your vision stuff, or did you want me to talk about infrastructure stuff first, or?
Yeah, okay, so basically this week I wanted to kind of get ahead of when Joseph and I write code together, because I wanted to have an idea of what kind of is industry standard for video game design. So I went on did some research on Wikipedia and a couple other places, but I came back with a list of a couple of Wikipedia articles that I think are relevant. Most are relevant to single-player first-person views, but I think there's some stuff that we can pull from that. The Field of View in Video Games article, the Viewing Frustum article, the Bounding Volume article, and the Angle of View article, I think were interesting reads. And I think I'm pretty sure it was the Bounding Volume one, is how you do vision in 3D. So if we were going to do 3D vision, we would definitely need to take a look at how the bounding volume works. Basically, it's all set theory. So you build a union of objects. You build a union of objects within the bounding volume, and then it even gives you like some formulas to just work with that are like the industry standard ones. Also from the Field of View one, I didn't realize this, but I guess there's a difference in standard Field of View for consoles versus PCs, and that's why sometimes a port can look weird if they don't give you options to fix that, which I thought was kind of interesting. If I remember right, you're closer to 180 on your PC, but you're closer to 90 on your console by just generally. But after reading these articles, I kind of came up with what I think would be a good approach to vision. And I would like to run that by you. But before I do that, do you have any like questions or anything you want to ask about on any of those things, Joseph?
Yeah, one thing came up when you were listing the articles was you can view my frustrum. And besides that, just looking at these articles, I don't know, like it reminds me of school, where I feel like if you explain this to me with words and like a whiteboard and some hand movements, I would kind of get the gist of it. But it's just like in school when something that could be explained is instead explained with about 400 different variables. I mean, like if you go to the bounding volume basic intersection checks, I actually see the entire alphabet with like I'm actually not joking. It's absurd. But I can't process this kind of stuff. It's kind of like when you see a long email, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't read this, like fuck you. I will not look at anything that looks like set notation or anything with the integral loopy, any of that shit. Like I just can't.
Yeah, I think with the bounding volume stuff, we would need to sit down and figure that out, because basically what you do is you build through like a series of equations, you build the three-dimensional object. So like in our case, we'd probably use a cone, for example. So you build a three-dimensional cone that goes out a certain distance. So you build like the whole formula for the cone. Mm-hmm. And then via the intersection checks, you decide whether something is in the volume, the bounding volume. Basically, the bounding volume literally means it's the outer bounds of the cylinder builds a volume, a literal like the depth, like the physical volume, and anything inside of there is in vision. So that's how you do checks in 3 dimensions if something is in it or not. You check to see if it's within the bound of the 3-dimensional object. Yeah, so sense. I mean, yeah, those equations are quite complicated once you get into 3 dimensions, but mostly it's complicated like that because if I'm not mistaken, the bounding volume one is the generic version. There's a simplified version somewhere else that I read that was specifically for cylinders, because like it's so standard to use like a cylinder in 3 dimensions. Or a pyramid. But yeah, I think the 2 articles that I think would affect us right now, since most of what we do is 2-dimensional, is the Field of View in video games and the Angle of View. Field of View, I think, is more important just to get like a basis on how that generally works in video games. Angle of View, though, I think is what's going to really be important to us, because I think how we basically all right, let me explain like what my thought process is, and then maybe you tell me if you just off the bat you can tell if there's going to be a problem with it. So after reading like all these articles and stuff, what I ended up deciding or thinking about doing for vision is you have you have your triangle in front of your little square, right? And it detects just generically if there's anything in that vision. If there's anything in that vision, it then creates slices temporarily. Basically, it'll create temporary game nodes that are just like slices of that triangle. And that though each individual slice then has to figure out whether it's making a connection with something, and if it hits something that's not see-throughable, it stops. And then once all those things are calculated out, we have our actual field of vision figured out, right? Because we've sliced our thing, and like the more processing power or the more optimized that can be, the thinner those slices can become until you build like basically an integral of vision. But for right now, I was going to just take it and cut it into like tenths or hundredths or something simple, like just something nice and round for me. And then and that's kind of like the idea for it. So now you have like a bunch of smaller spaces that do collision detection individually, and if whatever is whatever is colliding in those vision slivers, we ask whether or not it can see through it or not. I mean, for my game, nothing can be seen through. Players or terrain, you can't see through either. So it would just basically would stop the vision there, and then so your vision becomes this like shape built out of all of these thin slivers of vision. But yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart version of like the filtering that I was kind of thinking of last week or the week before, when it was kind of like you get the area of what my eyes could see in a perfect world, and then you kind of do some calculation stuff and then give me back what I can see and maybe change something. I think slices works. It's like a vision ray essentially, if I'm understanding you. It's like I can see instead of one contiguous chunk, like that would be the integral thing that you're saying. It's like I'm actually seeing 100 distinct little rectangles, and you piece them together. It's my view. And you're doing the math on all those rectangles or whatever. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's not enough to what we like need in the future, where if we have a mirror reflects back. So it's like you need to say, yes, you can see me, but you also need to do something, because you're looking at me at the angle you're looking at me at. I need to do something. Like transform the way I look to you. To you, I look like you. To him, I look like him, because I'm a mirror.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
The angle of view kind of explains how the angle math works. A lot of that is just going to be kind of garbo to work with, I think. Just for me, because I don't deal well with like circle logic like that. But basically, like for stuff like that, we would need to figure out like angles. And we'd probably have to use thinner slivers. But like I said, because the other issue that I was thinking about was, I don't remember if this is still true, but we used to have like an upper bound on how many game nodes could be on a field, like on the screen. Otherwise, the game starts like chunk real bad. Is that still true?
Yeah, we have that, and we have that performance issue at like 200 nodes or so. We start to have that, but that's if it's rendered on screen and like. But just having nodes in the tree it's inexpensive. It's the client taking all this stuff and rendering it. So when you have 500 distinct things that the thing has to draw, it's pretty fucking slow. But the actual tree itself is fast.
Oh, okay, cool. Then this is perfect, right? Because each of those vision slices are unique. But anyway, like I said, I think the moment we want to look into 3 dimensions, we need to scrap all of this stuff and look into bounding volumes and kind of 3-dimensional math. But I don't have the mental ability to do that just off the cuff. So especially when I don't have like a game to compare it to, and I haven't worked in 3 dimensions in a video game ever. So that'd be a lot of like stuff to learn just to like test out whether my volumes are correct. But I think I can probably sort this approach out, because it's 2 dimensions. It's just a check to see if it's within this big triangle, and if it is within the big triangle, then we do the little triangles, and if there's nothing in the big triangle, then we don't have to do the little triangles, and it's perfect. And that way we can kind of cut back on how many nodes are created, and we can just spin up nodes as we need to, basically.
Yeah in my head, it's like the 3D stuff that I mentioned, I think is just so far down the road that it's not even really worth thinking about at the moment. But in my head, it would be a very transitionary thing of something as simple as if I have a camera, like my whole thing about the camera of a 2D game is the same problem that we're solving with this vision thing, where it's the same thing of like, instead of a vision triangle with slivers in it, it's like an already calculated view of something, and I don't need to do this kind of like sliver thing. I just want to look at a particular part of the game tree, which is what the vision thing is doing. So there's some kind of shared logic there. I don't really know what that would look like, but it would be something as simple as, I have a camera, like a view of a 2D game, it's static, and then the transition to 3D is like, we can make the camera pivot 5 degrees down. So it, like there's difference, like just something so basic like that, or oh, you have a square on the screen, now you have a cube on the screen. Something like fuck around with coordinates, the way that 3D coordinates are drawn on the canvas, and figure out how that happens, and then kind of make an interface for that on the game node side, and very iterative. Like I don't imagine we'll ever have to get rid of the stuff that we're building right now. It'll just be kind of a progression and a new library for the 3D stuff and the old library for the 2D stuff, because 2D stuff will always be an option, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I can necessarily solve the 3D stuff anyway in like 2 months even. I would really need to research more into it, because the other thing too is I don't really remember vector calculus super well, and you kind of need that if you're going to do volume work. So I would need to probably find my old notes if I even have it, or my old textbooks if I still have them, and figure all that stuff out again.
That's funny. I feel like that's what makes this interesting, because I'm very anti-research. So you're the kind of person who's like, I'm going to go figure out how this shit works from like school and math, like real people who actually knows shit. And I'm like, fuck all that. I'll make something that sucks and it's broken, and I won't figure out how anything is supposed to work.
Well, what happened was over the weekend I was thinking a lot about how I wanted to do it, even because I was like, well, my idea is, what I had currently was just like a triangle, and I was like, well, how do I know what part of the triangle should go forward and what should be like cut off, and I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, well, how do other games do it? Like, other games do this all the time. Like, how do they even do it? So some research later, and then I was like, damn, they're so smart. So dumb. Oh, also interesting, they actually just straight up have an equation for what vision radius should be in a game for single player, depending on if it's for console or for... given the view width and the view height, it just straight up tells you, like, hey, this is the equation that's standard for the industry. So
that's what I'm saying, though.
I have to like figure that out.
I hate that. Like, I hate industry standards. like the entire concept of like, everybody does it like this, so you should do it like this. I hate that. So to me, that's kind of been like the magic of all this stuff, is that like, we kind of have a working game engine, but we don't know what the fuck a game engine is, and we kind of ended up here. Like,
yes.
Like, to me, that's what makes this stuff so fun. And so, yeah, sure, you know, some dude could say like, this is the way it's supposed to be, but like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Why is that the way it's like? Why is that the standard? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
From what I understood, it had to do with distortion. Right? Given a certain width and height, it would distort the game differently depending on what that is. So your field of vision needs to change with that, right? Because otherwise, if your field of vision is set, but then you're changing it's like you're seeing either too much or too little, depending on what the actual like dimension, what is it called? Your viewport dimensions, basically, right? Okay, yeah. Like your width and your height. So it's actually quite similar to some of the calculations you have already. Hilariously, it's just they use some angle math in there as well, because they're working with like part of a circle. They're working with like a chunk of a circle.
Yeah, and I'm sure like for a first person thing, or for, you know, like best practices or whatever, are for sure nice to have. But I guess I still want to have that thing where we explore things that are not what we're supposed to do or whatever, just to learn why the good option is even a good option. Mm-hmm. Instead of someone who's like, oh, you know, I use const instead of let for all of my things in JavaScript. And you're like, okay, you know, why? And like, oh, it's best practice. It's like, oh, so you don't know anything. You know what I mean? It's like, you need to do the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case, I agree with you for the most part. In this case, I think I might disagree with you on trying other stuff, mostly because I don't know if either of us would actually come to what would be the correct answer given, right? Because the actual equation uses like pi and stuff like that, and I'm sure eventually we could figure that out, but in my initial response would just be like, no circles, it's just a triangle. So I don't have to do calculations with pi.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at this and it makes sense with, it's a circle and that's where the pi stuff comes in, and it like I said, it makes sense. I guess what I'm interested in is building a system where we can make it do these things and like be able to fuck around with it without having to re-engineer or rebuild stuff. It's like, oh, you want to try an FOV of 170 degrees, like cool, put 170 here. Oh, you want 60? All right, put 60 there. Like, that's the extent to which you would need to do something. And so I'm just, to me, like, if you want to build a system that can do the wrong thing and the right thing in like an easy configurable way, like you need to truly understand everything it's doing, And for me personally, like anytime I see math, I stop reading.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from of like figuring out on our own. I just in this case, I don't necessarily want to re-engineer trigonometric mathematics because I'm not that good at trigonometry, I'll be honest with you, or geometry either.
Yeah, I'm not saying to ignore the math here. Like I'm not saying we should try to build our own math or like redefine the number system or whatever. It's just I have like a very strong like gut reaction just to anything where it's like we should probably do it like this, like because that's what like the industry said. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's my thing. It's just whatever. Math is obviously an industry thing. The industry fucking loves math, but we should stick to that. But when it's I don't know.
No, like I said, I agree with you in the general sense, and for the most part, I don't necessarily want to have to do a lot of research, but for this specifically, I don't think I would have come close to the right answer if I didn't do research.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's useful, and we'll have it for sure. But
yeah. Also, the other thing too is what you're talking about with like field of vision, like your numbers. That's part of the equation. It's literally just like your angle times ratio of width to height. That's what I was saying. Like in this case, we probably would get to that answer, but it would take us a long time to get to that answer because somewhere along the way would be like, oh right, circle math, and then we'd probably get there. But I would not immediately be like circle math is the way to go on this one.
Yeah, but to me, if you spend like 12 hours in that weekend and all you got to was circle math, like that's basically what I was doing when I was trying to render circles on the thing, when I was trying to do shapes with curvature in any of the sides, like a whatever, that whole thing last year. And that was like a month of me going, circle math. It was useful and I learned some stuff, but like I didn't even really have nothing came out of that. Like nothing worked in any of that 100%. But my point is, if you spend a weekend and you're like, oh shit, it's just basic math or whatever, in that thing you understood why it's that math. It's not just like, of course it's math, dumbass,
No, I get it. That was my reaction when I read the article. Actually, I was like, "Oh right, it's just the math that we were probably taught in like high school."
Yeah.
Like, here's a circle. Here's what a part of a circle is. Here's how you calculate it. I was like, shoot.
Johnny's looking at a tree from 6 feet away. He's looking at a 40-degree angle. Well, how tall is the tree, or whatever?
Yeah, it is hilariously similar to that. And I was just like, oh my god, how am I so stupid? But at the same time, I was like, all right. I was like, all right, math nerds.
You got one this time.
They won this battle, but the war is not over yet. But what about you, man? What home game stuff have you been working on?
Yeah, so actually not a ton of new progress on stuff outside of what I've been talking about, which is getting our infrastructure productionized to some extent. And I guess it's just been boring as shit. Like, I really hate building Docker images and pushing them to ECR and setting up ECS services. And I could simplify all this and automate some of it with Cloudformation, which is a tool that you can use to essentially define your infrastructure as a JSON or YAML file, and then Amazon, like AWS, will build resources as part of a Cloudformation stack. So I can automate some of this, but I don't want to. I feel like I'm just doing it manually before I automate stuff, just to make it simple to even know what I'm doing before I automate stuff. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so this past weekend I was kind of stuck on the builder stuff after. So just to kind of recap, last week I had mentioned I was trying to make containers for Pico de Gallo. So the demo stuff should have a container where it's just running and it's always up and ECS manages it instead of me having to SSH into a machine. Ran into this problem where kind of the fundamental thing of Homegames and Pico de Gallo as a result is that it's one server running games. It's one. It's not a fleet. There's no load balancer. There's no whatever, because it's single instance local games for the most part. So that was the whole thing there. And then kind of started going to the builder after I didn't really get much with Pico de Gallo, because the three remaining things were Pico de Gallo, builder, and certifier. And the builder is the thing responsible for building binaries of Homegames when we push master. And so I need to split that thing up into essentially one that's just the website that we have today, that is, downloads available of the binaries, and then this thing on a timer to just build an instance of it, or build the binary or whatever. But that only works if there's only one task running of the builder, because the way it works is every 5 minutes it'll, like we talked about this last week, every 5 minutes it'll ask, hey, is there a new build available or a new commit available? If there is, then I'll build the binary and I'll update this DynamoDB table so I remember which one I built last. But there's the chance where if there's multiple instances of this thing, they can both look at the same time and then say, oh shit, I haven't built it yet. And then they both build, and then they both push, and they both try to update. It'll work because one will just overwrite the other and it'll eventually be fine. But that is a problem if we have to scale out to like 50 instances. It's like, oh yeah, there's just 50 of these will be built, and whatever, it'll be fine. Like, it's just not a good way to build it out. Mm-hmm. So there's some work there I need to do to split out the website and maybe move out the whole automated checking thing to a separate like cron job where I could only ever run one of those, and the website is just a separate thing. But anyway, some work needs to be done to the builder to split out some of that stuff. I didn't do that this week. I just know I need to. What I actually did was the certifier. I attempted to containerize the certifier. And so the certifier is responsible for generating TLS certificates for Homegames instances. And so you can either create certificates or validate existing certificates with this service. And it's really shitty at the moment. It's like I actually wrote most of the service on the machine while SSH'd into it. Like, I didn't even do the standard, like, write it locally, push it up, and then test. Like, I just SSH'd into it, wrote it, and then copied the code back into my Mac and pushed it that way. But anyway, it was a stupid thing. But it's very fragile, I guess, is my point. It's a very quickly written, generally shitty thing. So the act of productionizing this thing is making it super stable and more rigid for bad inputs and stuff like that, and these kinds of things. But in terms of containerizing the service to make it more scalable, essentially ran into this problem that I knew I would run into of running certbot within a Docker container, because certbot is the script that we use to talk to the Let's Encrypt service to generate certificates and keys for us to give back to people. And this thing needs to, I believe it needs to be accessible, like, publicly, like for the actual servers to communicate back with this. I don't know anything. All I know is that running it in a Docker container makes it so that it needs to communicate with some external service that it can't communicate with while it's in a Docker container to create your certificate. So what they recommend is, like, if you want to run this stuff from a Docker container, you need to have some sort of machine, like the actual server that has access to whatever.homegames.link, that has the thing that says I am homegames.link, and I can generate server certificates for blah.homegames.link, that kind of stuff. That server needs to be running certbot itself. Like, it can't be in a container on that server. It needs to be on the machine, and that machine needs to have the certificate.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story less long, I need to just keep this thing one instance, one AC2 instance, just like Pico de Gallo, because the way that certbot works, it'll make an account ID, so it like knows who's generating certificates and how often, so they can do rate limiting and stuff like that, and kind of magically generate it without telling you specifically like that they did it, or explicitly. But that's based off of, I think, your IP address that you're using to request certbot. So if you have one server all the time, it's helpful for that too, for consistency. It's always one IP address unless you replace the server or whatever, but you don't have like, kind of a new task every day with a different IP and it's different. I don't know anything. All I know is it needs to be on one instance, and as a result, I'll need some good tooling, like I said last week, for deployment scripts for Pico de Gallo. Kind of just like, I have this GitHub repo. I want this code on a machine, and I want to run this node process on the machine, not a Docker container. Like, this is essentially Docker, but I want it on the machine itself. So building some tooling around that'll let me easily deploy this stuff and get my certifier going with just one instance always. That'll always just talk to the certbot and kind of make some good infrastructure around there to make sure that this thing doesn't fall over and die and make certificates unavailable. And then same with Pico de Gallo, but to a lesser kind of severity, because if Pico de Gallo is down, no one cares. But if the certifier is down, then no one can generate certs for home games, which is bad.
Yeah. Does the certifier also verify certs?
Yeah, at the moment it is a shitty verification, but it does attempt to. I mean, we have basically like a stub API at this point. It doesn't really do anything. But it'll be like, in my head it'll be the client is like, hey, I have a certificate, here's my username, and my checksum of the cert and the key are this. And you can give that to the thing, and my thing will be like, okay, well, yes, your certs are good, and they match what I have for you, or, oh, your certs are good, and they match what I have for you, but they're about to expire. Let me generate a new one and give it back to you, or stuff like that. So it needs to be a super robust, or more robust than it is right now. So that's kind of what I mean. I basically need to rewrite that thing just to make it make sense, because it's written pretty shittily.
Yeah, no worry. I mean, listen, I'm amazed that you could do it in the first place, because that we literally were like, that's going to be an impossible Herculean task, and then you were like, yeah, I finish it in a weekend, and I was like, what? So I imagine that getting that sorted out is going to be impressive again.
Shout out to that Plex blog that just very high level explained how they set up certs for Plex users.
I feel like that person and you are actually secretly linked by fate to one another, because when you first described it, you're like, yeah, they kind of were like, I never found anything like this anywhere else, like, here you go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I like that it's all open source and stuff. I think that's the cool thing about this, where it's like, oh yeah, if you have the I don't know what the word is, if you're brave enough to try to read my shitty code and understand what I'm trying to do here, you actually might get something valuable of like, oh cool, this dude made a certificate generator for free. I don't know, it's useful to someone, hopefully. I don't know.
It's probably him and you are the only people using it.
Good enough. I also just had some thoughts. This was just earlier today. I was thinking about the iOS stuff I wanted to do, and the real thinking was the infrastructure stuff is so boring, and I want to write code and optimize stuff. That's my favorite thing, is optimizing stuff. And so we know that the web client at the moment, is the bottleneck for performance. Game stuff can update just fine and come back to the client just fine over the network, but that actual client-side render is very slow. So if we make that faster, overall experience feels a lot better. So I want to work on that thing. And then it kind of got me thinking about where that web app stands kind of in the priority. And I want it to always be as good as it possibly can be. Like, I don't like the idea of we intentionally like kneecapped our shit here and you can go give us $1 and get the app and like it's better. If we don't have to do that, we shouldn't do that. Something like a feature that is just legitimately not available in the web browser to us, like in the API or whatever, we have no control over that not being available. So it being like a download the app if you want this, microphone access or whatever, as an example, or whatever, something like that. But the web app should always be the priority, and it should always be as good as it possibly can be, because I don't think people should need to download an app or whatever to play this stuff, but I think an app should be available for the best possible performance. If we can take full advantage of the hardware, or take a large or more of an advantage of the hardware than we do in the web browser, then we can have better performance and all that kind of stuff on iOS and Android. But I got to thinking about iOS and how they're so strict with their store guidelines, and how I've heard before. What's going on? You good? You being home invaded?
Yeah, sorry. I heard weird noises, and then I was listening carefully, and I realized my dog was sleep woofing.
Oh.
And, but it was super muffled through the headset. I was like, what the heck is that?
Nice.
Sorry, continue.
No, but yeah, apps should be available, and they'll be faster than the web stuff, but they should always be optional. Mm-hmm. But I remember hearing recently, the past like 6 months or so, of someone who had tried to publish an app to the App Store, and they had some problem because their app was more of a platform that allowed other games kind of underneath it. Like, you could download this thing and then you could play games inside of it, but those games were not necessarily part of this base app. This base app was like a platform. I forget what the actual specifics were, but the problem came down to the Apple App Store said, hey, we need review processes for every game available on your platform. You can't just like put your platform up and then kind of side load all this other kind of shit into it through this other process that we don't control. And that's Apple. That I totally get it. Right? Like, I was just sucking Apple's dick earlier. I don't like this, but like, I get it. I totally get why Apple would do that and keep all that stuff, keep all those restrictions. But it got me thinking of just like what that process would be like if we had these games that we have in this kind of central repository of this game server, and then the application that you download on your iOS device is actually just a client to talk to this game server, and we control all the content on this game server, and Apple doesn't. Doesn't seem like Apple would allow that. And I don't even know if Google would. I mean, they're pretty laissez-faire on the whole thing, but I still don't imagine they would let us just like build a client to anything, and have that whole thing. Maybe they would. I don't know. You have SSH clients on Android devices. It's fucking crazy out there.
And as an Android, they're like, you know what? If it ships, we're good.
It says build complete right here.
If you build a Google app though, then you gotta go through the review process.
Yeah, that's true. And there's probably going to be the option too of like a third-party iOS app where you have to have your user go through some shady looking process to say, yeah, give me viruses or whatever the fuck. And then we're like, hey, here's our unsigned package or whatever. Anyway, it was just a thought, and maybe the nice dream of having apps in this like very seamless thing don't quite work the way that I think they should. But
I wonder how they would even, I don't know if they would even realize that, because the game, like the client, if the client doesn't have anything to hit, there's no games to play. It's not like we're standing, like right now where you or I aren't standing up, aside from Pico de Gallo, a game server for them to look against. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like,
there's no version of public home games at the moment.
Yeah, there is no public home. There's no like open accessed version. Like, you have to run it on your own. Like, you have to run it on your LAN, your local area network. Like, your Wi-Fi has to be the one serving up the games in the first place.
I would imagine by the time that we got to the point of submitting an app for review, and I'm sure part of their process is like demo it for it, like let us hit some sort of main code path or whatever, like what does the user see, what is this type thing. So if you were to do that, I imagine it would be we would need a public version, kind of like the Pico de Gallo stuff we were talking about last week, where you can have like games.pico de Gallo, and it's just a game server, and you can have a generic client just talk to it however it does. And if you have an iOS client, that's that. I mean, you build an iOS client, it can talk to this thing, you get a game back. And then the problem comes back where those games are porn, or those games are like illegal somehow or whatever. And Apple wouldn't approve that stuff, and I don't know how that even works if we have just like I said, a server where we can put whatever we want on it, and this thing on an Apple device will just render it, and we control all that. But then I guess you get that with like YouTube, where it's like, okay, well, does Apple have to review every YouTube video? No. But then how are they allowed to do it? But then also they're Google, we are not, so maybe they have a little bit more pull at the App Store.
Google was like, well, either you put the YouTube app on there or you don't get to use YouTube. And Apple was like, all right, you win.
Exactly. So we just need to make Homegames enough of a brand to make it so Apple has no choice. So let's get out there, Homegame.
The other thing, too, is, there isn't really a problem with trying.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean,
right? Like, we can always just... Because the other thing, too, is, like, you get to learn Swift for that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I want to build this thing for myself to learn Swift. Like, that whole thing. But I don't know if it's such a high priority, especially knowing, like, it probably won't pay off. Like, it's probably just more of an experience, like a learning experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it wouldn't pay off. Because, like you said, there's YouTube. And I'm sure there's other apps that work similar to that. Like Wolfram Alpha probably doesn't have all of the Wolfram Alpha code on there.
Yeah, but...
They probably hit a server that does some of the work for you.
But servers, like a server to do some of the processing is like a standard thing. But when it's some server that Apple doesn't control and it's feeding the content that comes into this app, and their whole thing is about approving the content, like... I don't know how they approve YouTube when YouTube can have anything on it, and it's the same situation. They don't control YouTube servers. They don't. The content is
Twitter, Facebook, all those things are the same. So I don't know. That's what I was saying. Like I don't know if maybe how we would compare to that. And the other thing too is like I don't know how we would compare to that other dude or group of people who failed out of their application process because of it.
Yeah, and I don't remember even the specifics of what they were doing to know. Maybe because it was a game specifically, and it's not video content or like user submitted content. It's games, which have like a different thing. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Because I think the other thing too is you have to. If I remember right from the Google app that we had to build at work, you have to like submit certain like written documentation on like what it does and why it works the way it does. So I wonder if we're just like, hey, listen, like this is the client that renders, and it's served up what it's supposed to render, like exactly like a web page would be.
yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see, but that is a road we will cross when we get to it or whatever, and that's a long time from now. It's just something I was thinking of about kind of where the web app fits in this hierarchy of clients and stuff. So
yeah, I wonder how that would work out. I think it'd be funnier is if we get approval from Apple but we don't get approval from Google.
I'm cool with that, man. Fuck Android.
Hey, I don't own an Apple device.
And I'm sure your life is worse as a result. You know, you don't know what you're missing, but you're missing it.
I don't know. I've never run into any issues without an Apple phone.
I know. I just like to make fun of you because you have that nerd shit.
I accept the beating. Is there anything else you want to talk about for Homegames?
No. Like I said, it was a pretty light week. It was just kind of more boring infrastructure stuff, but this is pretty much it for me. Like before early April when I'm getting married, and that's kind of like a checkpoint to me. So I'm trying to get some stuff done before then. So essentially my thing is getting the certifier and the Pico de Gallo stuff kind of more solid and consistent, even if it's a little bit more fragile than the other stuff. It's kind of a mid-step until whatever it needs to be. And then splitting out that builder stuff that I had mentioned. And then any time that I have left, I would like to just spend optimizing the web client. I think that'd be fun. Then kind of come back after the wedding with a bit of a different set of eyes, with married eyes,
In League of Legends, it very famously, there's a wife buff. If you get married, you tend to win worlds. So maybe it'll happen for you as well.
Yeah, we'll suddenly just get like 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and like all of our code will be good all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, listen, all I'm saying is that if I do become a VTuber, suddenly there will be more users on Homegames, probably.
What's any updates on your VTuber process?
I am done with my research. I've watched now close to 20 hours of VTuber content.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks. So I'm a little bit worn out from that. But yeah, I need to just do my application. Nice. Well, first I need to write some code for it, but it should be pretty straightforward to do.
Damn, this guy's writing code for his VTuber life.
Yeah, well, because my whole character is like an adventurer who takes you out with him, but as a VTuber, you're supposed to hide your identity and prevent people from figuring out your identity easily. Mm-hmm. So I was gonna write some code real quick that anonymizes faces and text in a video. Basically, you give it a video and it does Gaussian randomization on any face it detects and any text it detects.
Is it just using some like open source model to know what text and faces look like?
Yeah, there's an open source thing. I think it's called OC Vision or something like that, or CO Vision, computer vision maybe. Okay. But yeah, it's just like an open source thing that helps with it helps with like detection. Has tools built in to detect faces and to detect text.
Nice.
And so I just need to do it. But I ended up finding the reason I found that library was because I was looking up how to do that in the first place, and I just found a Medium blog where the guy was like, here's how I did it, and I was like, sick.
Medium to the rescue again.
Yeah, I was like, sick, bro. I'm just gonna he did it only for faces, so I'll need to take it and run it through for face detection and then also for text detection. But I was also gonna take it a little bit further, and I was thinking about lightening the image like 10% and then anonymizing it and then redarkening it, just in case there was something that like somebody could really crank up the brightness on and to like read like Oro Valley on some random thing.
or just say it on the podcast. It's so good.
They know I live there, don't they?
You've never said Oro Valley specifically.
Fudge. Well,
but, whatever. One step closer to your demise.
We're just gonna we bleep that word out.
Yeah, I can find out something. I have an extra day to edit, so I'll go back. On the last one, I forgot to edit out the end where like so when we record the videos, when I finish them, I close the full screen, right? Like I click the thing on Discord to make it go back to my full desktop, and then I hit stop on OBS. But there's that like 5 seconds there where you get the recording of my desktop after the call, or after and I normally edit that out. But I was tired last time. I was a little rushed or whatever, and I forgot to cut out that last 5 seconds, and I had already processed it, and processing takes like 3 hours on my computer, so it was kind of a painful thing. And after I had processed it, I realized I missed that part, and I was like, oh fuck. And then I went and I paused and I zoomed in on everything on my Windows Explorer to make sure that none of my recent files were funny. I was good, thankfully, but that was a real like heart skipper, you know what I mean?
Oh my god! As long as you don't find like pics of sausage on your,
like the picture of JC with his titties out or whatever, like any of those kinds of pictures.
Pics of friends Schmeat or something. Oh man, that'd be really funny. Thank you for editing it, even though you were really rushed for it. By the way,
no worries. That was my fault anyway, whatever. Is it time for Song of the Week?
I believe so.
Song of the Week. Your song of the week, Yazeed, was "I Belong Here" by Setmo and Woods. I think these are two separate people because it's a Setmo album, and then the song said it had Woods on it. Anyway, this was a cool, soft song. I liked the way it progressed for the first half of it. Kind of adds some more instruments in the right side of the headphones in like the second part of and the second time the chorus happens, and a little bit of like layers and progression and that kind of stuff, which was cool, and it still kept it like soft and smooth and stuff like that. I enjoyed that. At about the halfway point, it started to lose a little bit of steam, and it stopped doing the layering stuff and started really just to slow down, and it like started to just kind of leave more space and kind of like more repetition. And I was like, okay, this is not the progression I like. I like the progression of adding more. And then it added more, and then it started to just kind of change. And that's progression in the truest sense. I just didn't like it. I didn't like that second half of the song. It was a little slow. But it was cool. It was nice, pleasant. It was just pleasant.
Yeah, I did find that song pretty pleasant. I was having a not great week last week, and just this song was a nice little pick-me-up. I felt like.
Nice.
It had happy vibes to it, and I kind of needed that.
Very happy vibes.
Yes.
Nice.
I liked it quite a bit. I'm not surprised you didn't enjoy the repetition and monotony of the song.
Like I said, it's cool at the beginning because like the words are repetitive, but the instruments changed, or there was like a new little thing happening in the background. But when that started to not be the case, it was kind of less interesting.
Yeah, that's probably true. I like repetition though, so this will be a recurring theme if anyone's a brand new listener. Your song of the week though was 2 Chainz's Fork.
True.
Which is a hilarious song. let me read you my 2 favorite verses from here. If I die tonight, you're going to see some flex and ghostas. I'm the man in my city. Same thing in South Dakota. Man, I'm running up that check. Show you how I do it. I drink red bitches. I don't drink Red Bulls. And also, my wrist deserves a shout out. I'm like, what up, wrist? My stove deserves a shout out. I'm like, what up, stove?
2 Chainz is hilarious. 2 Chainz is one of my favorite rappers because he's actually good at rapping, but he's got stuff like that. Like, if I die tonight, you will see some flex and ghost.
This is the corniest thing I've ever read, especially that second one, dude. Don't even.
I think it's only corny because it's us reading it off of the words. But 2 Chainz has never been corny. That man can do pretty much anything, and it's fine. Like he's got a TV show where it's called The Most Expensivest, where he just like goes and looks at stuff that's expensive, and he's just like, damn, that's expensive. And it's not corny or lame at all. He's like super fucking cool the whole time. So he can pull off what up stove. That's all I'm saying.
Bruh, maybe it's because I don't know much about 2 Chainz, but literally when he said those lines, I paused the music and I was like, I have to be misunderstanding. And I went back and I retried it again, and he's just said the same thing, and I was like, all right, well.
I think it's also pretty amazing because I think this is the first song based on a true story too. And like 2 Chainz is basically his whole rebrand because he was a rapper for a long time before he got really big with his album based on a true story as 2 Chainz. Before that, he was Titty Boy. You could see why he wasn't really that successful. His name wasn't great, but on based on a true story, he had a song with Drake that was pretty big, and he kind of like basically found a new life in his career or whatever. And then the first song on his follow up to that is Fork, where like he just goes skirt 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 like super fucking loud at the beginning, like before he starts rapping. I don't know. It's a very bold opening, and it's funny as shit, and it's like it's fun to listen to. It's a great song. I put this on. This was my song of the week because it was on my old iPod that I mentioned before, and for whatever reason I didn't have any of the songs from Based on a True Story on my Spotify playlist, so there's like 100 new songs on my playlist after going through that iPod, and this was just my favorite because, yeah, if I die tonight, you're gonna see some flexing ghosts is fucking hilarious. I was telling like, I repeated that line several times today to Synovia, so it's funny that this is the first one you put on the thing.
What's your favorite line in this song?
Probably these two. Like I quoted these all the time. The what up stove and the flexing ghost it's fucking hilarious.
I didn't put this in, but the opening to the song is he's just talking to his mom.
Oh yeah.
He's like, "Hey ma," and she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Did you take the money out of my pocket?" And she's like, "No," and stop yelling at me. And it's like, "No one's yelling at you." You know, it's like, well, this guy is just. I understand what you were talking about, like in the before this podcast conversation. Yeah. When you were like, rappers just kind of do their own thing sometimes, and this song really does feel like this guy was just like, you know, what up, stove? It's going in.
Yeah. 2 Chainz is really good at balancing humor in his stuff, but he's also clever. Like it's silly, but it's never dumb, I guess. Like he's always in on it. You know, he's in on like how fucking stupid it is. Like he's not seriously like, yeah, I'm gonna be a flexing ghoster, you know. He's like, no, that's funny. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, it is really funny. I really thought on that first "If I Die Tonight" thing, I was like, this has to be like the funniest thing he's gonna say in this whole song. But I was wrong. It was just the second funniest thing he says in the whole song. Somewhere in there he talks about going to Costa, which I assume is Costa Rica.
It's soon as I land, I'll be something in that Tesla roaster or whatever. Yeah. Landed on headed to the Costa. Mm-hmm. Soon as I land, I'll be in that Tesla roaster. If I die tonight, you're gonna see some flexing ghoster. That's what it is.
Yeah. That song really is just incredible. I think I had another line in here that I was gonna ask you about, and like what he was talking about. But after I heard these two, I was like, forget it. I don't need to know.
I'm all that.
I don't even know whatever else this guy is talking about. This is what he's talking about now. All right, his wrist certainly does deserve a shout out. Is this song straight up just him if he didn't, like, would he just sell drugs if he didn't become a rapper? Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah, basically.
Like, basically he's just telling us his plan B. Yeah. If his album doesn't go well.
Yeah. And luckily...
Now that's actually a flex, isn't it? He's like, you know what? I'd be goddamn wealthy if I didn't do this rap stuff. I'd just sell drugs. And you're just like... You would be. All right.
Yeah, but luckily for all of us, the rap stuff worked out.
Is he still rapping?
Yeah, dude. He just put out an album last year. My favorite Young Thug line, like ever, is from a 2 Chainz song that came out a few years ago. That's the in the summertime my rings keep my fist cold. That whole verse that I always quote.
Oh, you've never quoted that to me.
Dude, you were the one. You were like, "Oh man, in the summertime, my rings keep my fist cold." That's pretty nice, man. That's a good bar.
Oh shoot. Okay, well maybe. Listen, I don't have the best memory. I'll be honest.
That's true.
I'm the goldfish, whereas you're like the elephant. So.
Man, call me a whole elephant.
No, I don't mean no. I mean like elephants have long memory and goldfish don't. Hold
on. But yeah, no, 2 Chainz. He's great. Highly recommend 2 Chainz.
Is he the 2 phones guy as well?
No, that's Kevin Gates. He's got 2 phones.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like 2 Chainz should have done 2 phones because it's a 2, but...
There was one where he just said 2 Chainz, I got 2 bitches, and then he keeps rapping after that. So he's got 2 of other things, but I don't know about 2 phones.
I mean, clearly he doesn't drink Red Bull.
No. Oh, he doesn't drink Red Bull.
Is he just against Red Bull? Does he have other lines in other songs where he just dunks on Red Bull for some reason?
No, but he follows up the Red Bull one on this one where he says, they try to give me wings, but I already had some. I'm all that and then some. My trap house is my income and it's booming.
Listen, I was afraid if I just keep quoting him straight up, we're gonna get like DMC'd. So I was like, I can't do more than this because, but that whole like literally there's like whole chunks of this rap that I wanted to quote because it's if you're a listener, you've never listened to the song, go listen to the song. I don't even like this song, but it is a roller coaster of a song. You'll listen to the song and you'll be like, there's no way, this is the peak of the song, but it gets better. And then even at the end, you're like, well, there could be more, isn't there? And then there isn't. And you're just like, well, I kind of wish there was.
Yeah, it's really got it all. It's everything you need in music, really.
True.
True.
This song raised my mood up significantly, so.
Nice. You should listen to it every morning when you wake up. Just get the day started with Fork.
Dog, I wake up every morning I wake up every morning to the same alarm sound, and I have for the last few years, and I'm terrified of switching it to a different alarm sound, because what if I don't wake up to it?
Mm-hmm. You ever put a song that you like as your alarm sound?
No.
It's a great way to make sure you hate that song forever.
I did that to myself when I was doing homework. I realized that if you play a song that you like for 10 hours while you do homework, you'll start to dislike that song and or associate it with doing homework.
Yes.
Which kind of ruins that song when you're no longer in school.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's rough.
R.I.P. Spooky Scary Skeletons remix. I loved you dearly.
It's for the best.
That's a great song. That'll be my song of the week one week where no one expects it.
I like it, like on Christmas or something like that. I feel like that's the
it's gonna be on
song.
I don't know. I was gonna say like Pi Day, but that was yesterday, so can't be.
Just missed it. What's like a day of life, right? It was like a day of dad.
Valentine's Day. Mother's Day.
Yeah, I guess. We could find some inappropriate usage. You'll
I don't think I should play that song on Mother's Day. Maybe a different day, maybe Dia de los Muertos or something like that.
But that's so expected. You're trying to come at us when you will least expect it. I mean,
no, because everyone would assume I missed Halloween.
Okay. I respect it. Whatever you do.
Maybe Christmas is also a good one.
And we're back around to Christmas. See how this goes.
It always comes back to Christmas. How's Lent going, by the way?
It's great. I still haven't had any coffee. I haven't had any meat on any Fridays except for that one where we had to go to the appointment for our wedding stuff. No, it's great. Nice. I'm almost done. 3 weeks from yesterday, I think, is the end of it. And I'm going to probably overdose on coffee because I have all these subscriptions, my coffee subscription service.
3 weeks from yesterday?
I believe so, yeah. 3 weeks.
You're almost done, but there's 3 weeks left?
Yeah, because it's a 6-week thing.
Sort of the halfway mark. Okay.
Yeah, I think it started on the 17th, February 17th. So it's been 1, 2, 3.5-ish weeks. And then it's over on April 4th. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 weeks from yesterday. And I have 4 or 5 brand new bags of coffee unopened in the cabinet. So on Easter, I might pass away.
Arabica? That's the only coffee I know.
It's I think 70-something% of coffee is Arabica, and the rest of it is Robusta. I think or maybe not the rest of it, but most of the rest of it is Robusta. Anyway, the thing is, when someone's like, "Oh, we have pure Arabica beans," it basically means nothing because most beans are Arabica beans. It just sounds cool. It's
like when jackets are genuine leather, but that's just a rating on leather.
It's the shittiest leather you could get is genuine leather.
Yeah, it's not the shittiest. You can get worse, but it's not great.
It's like second tier though, right? It's not up there.
I mean, what's lower than that I think is literally just leather scraps glued together. So
yeah, that's pretty low end,
Yeah, but they don't make jackets out of higher tier stuff. They only make horse saddles and stuff.
I imagine they must make jackets out of the nice stuff, but it's just not at the shops that we go to.
Maybe, but I think it's too heavy. It's like a horse saddle has almost no give in it.
Yeah,
but I think it'd be awful to wear that as a jacket. You wouldn't be able to move really well.
Yeah, but is a horse saddle all just leather? I'm sure there's some base that they coat in leather.
There is layers inside of it, but I know the outside is pretty resilient to bending.
I'm gonna look up
the leather. I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like there's a reason everything is genuine leather.
Well, I'm on the Givenchy website looking at their leather jackets to see what they're about. They've got leather on them. This doesn't look like cheap leather. This jacket's $3,200.
But is it genuine leather?
I don't know. It doesn't have any words because it's expensive. So It's one of those websites where they're just like, we have 4 pictures.
So
and a
you're
price
telling me
tag.
we need to go to one of their stores, to one of their outlet stores, and talk to their employees there.
I don't think they have outlet stores, but yeah, that's
Nah, they do. Listen, I'll be real with you. When I was in Singapore, all of those crazy brands that you're like, wow, I bet they don't even have real stores. They do, and people do buy stuff from them.
No, they have stores. They don't have outlets. Like Givenchy stuff doesn't go on clearance.
Yeah, sorry, not like an outlet store. My brother and mom went into a Balenciaga store in Singapore.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go in. My mom told me that the purse, like a really small purse there, cost like several $1,000s, and I was like, damn.
Yeah, you can get a their hats are like $500 at Balenciaga. It's crazy, all that stuff. But you should all I'm saying is you should look into Rick Owens if you want a fancy ass leather jacket and you want to blow like $5,000 and you want to also look like you were ripped in half while you were wearing your leather jacket. You should look into Rick Owens. That's all.
I own a few leather jackets. I don't think I need to own another one unless I own a motorcycle,
Well, then that's next. We got to get you a motorcycle and some Rick Owens. Take some photos. It's a home game photo shoot.
If I get a motorcycle, no, for sure, I'm taking at least one picture and sending it out.
As you should.
But first, I need to learn to ride a bicycle. But anyway, Joseph, do you have anything else you want to talk about on this podcast?
No, I don't. That is going to do it for us, I believe, unless you have anything else. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. That is going to do it for us for this week. Our music, as always, is done by our friend Tynan. He is Nytan on Bandcamp. That is Nytan, Nytan. Our website is homegames.io. You can go there and look at things that we have on there, which are mostly this podcast and some other stuff, so maybe don't. We're on Twitter at homegames.io. You can tweet us questions or comments or feedback or whatever at homegames.io. You can also send us an email to podcast@homegames.io, and we will probably read that email on this podcast. That's going to do it. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
My Audacity froze up for a second.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
Bye.